Hello and welcome fans and friends, my name is Super 8-Bit Ben and today I'm going to make a video that's going to be some constructive criticism and some ideas that I want to add to ARMS, the game, which is this here. Now I have enjoyed playing this for a couple of hours, and I mean just a couple of hours, about 10 hours since the launch, and to me that's actually a really poor amount of time that I've played it since it came out, since being around for a few months now. It's very lackluster with its content, and a lot of people have been complaining about this with ARMS. So also I need to address that if you haven't seen me wearing these glasses before, I started one episode ago on the second part of my Game Boy collection video wearing these glasses. I've changed up the design a little bit to fill up the LED matrix. So I hope you like this new change, and I hope it adds a bit more personality to the channel as usual. So we're going to move on to my constructive criticism. We're going to be involving some gameplay and also maybe some pictures of ideas I've had and stuff like that. So let's move on to that. Okay, so more than likely you may know about ARMS if you're a big Nintendo fan, but if you don't, ARMS is a boxing game with long range arms. Like, that's the best way I can really explain the game, and the main mechanics is basically just punching and grabbing, and that's where the problems start to begin with ARMS because it's so limited in its movesets. Now yes, you do have the arms themselves, which are more like the hands on the arms, which are like, there's a couple of different weapons, like there's like a missile one, there's a boomerang one, there's a boxing glove one, you get the sort of point. I was thinking the other day, it was kind of like the ultra hand that Gunpei Yokoi made. I wonder if it's some kind of reference or if we get something like that in the future. The thing of ARMS is it's a brand new IP by Nintendo. It has no iconic characters yet, except for like say Ribbon Girl and Springman. Yeah. Well, you get my point. Even I'm having a bit of trouble thinking off the top of my head what the characters are called. Their designs are pretty unique and I do quite like them, but I feel like ARMS should have been a side mode, and we'll go into the reasoning why I think so. Some of the biggest problems with ARMS is not only the mechanics but the lack of modes that are available for the online and offline mode. You have your standard fights, which there's only about 6 or so stages, and they barely lack any personality at all, to be honest with you. Like, they're just stages based off each character, and I think that's pretty cool. But even in the Grand Prix mode, there's like no story mode at all, which is sad, and I think it would have really added some characters to the game if each character had their own story to play through. I feel like it was very lazy and slapped together. Like, it's not even a story mode. Like, it's called a Grand Prix, but my favorite mode in the game is V-Ball, but there's actually only one stage for that particular mode because I don't know why. I think there should be at least 5 stages like with the standard fighting mode. There's another mode called Hoops, which is just basketball, and all you really have to do is just spam the grab move and move your opponent into the hoop, and it just does it automatically for you basically, and there's not much to it. I think if they were to make the stage a bit wider, maybe add more hips or something, make it more original, make it more difficult for you to actually land your opponent in the hips, I think it would make it a much more interesting game for offline and online. And while we're talking about the online needs to have exclusive competitive modes. So like, we need to have a ranked competitive mode for the hardcore audience that is attracted to ARMS at the moment. I feel like there's not many competitive players online because of this. Basically every fighting game has a competitive mode where you move up the ranks as you get better, or as you defeat more enemies. You'll find other people that are as skilled as you are, and it just kind of tests your skills in general. Now, to be fair, the lack of content may not be a permanent thing forever, as there is trickles of new stages and characters coming out every so often, and I can't really expect Nintendo to release a new character and a new stage every single week, but it needs to be like every second week at this point because the fan base is just dying off because there's like nothing to play in the game, and this is like a full-on price game with barely any content at all. But I do have a solution, and I have some ideas for new modes. I've already made some suggestions like adding a competitive mode. I've had an idea for like a 2D ARMS mode, which is kind of like a traditional 2D fighter but using ARMS as mechanics, and maybe it may use some retro graphics, and this could be like a side mode, and it could even become its own meta at some point. I think that would actually be quite interesting. Another mode I thought of is a sumo wrestling mode, which basically what you would do is try to grab your opponent. you won't be able to swing them to the left or right like you usually can. You have to really pull and really try to get your opponent off the stage. I think that could be really interesting, and again, a new type of meta for online competitive I think would be really interesting. And of course, we can't have the most popular sport in the world, which is football or soccer as they call it in America. I want to call it arms ball because it doesn't actually use your feet. They would use the arms to basically try to point the ball in the right direction into the goal. I think that would get really intense with certain matches. It's just a constant stream of trying to punch the ball in the right direction. It'll be really, really hectic. And I think even being the goalie would be an interesting role in arms ball, because you would have to try to stretch out your arms from blocking the ball to get into the goal. And it wouldn't be the easiest thing to do in the world, you know. And as well as American football, it could be like a version of American football where you just run and throw the ball using your extendable arms to pass to your opponents. And this may seem like a slightly silly mode, but tag, like, I think everyone knows what tag is. You just run around and chase your opponent. And I think that could be quite interesting for arms because of the extendable arms. Again, what that mode would contain would be to try to run around as quickly as possible, as well as trying to avoid for as long as possible your opponent. Like that would be like the winning streak, is if you get like the longest time of not being caught, and the stages would be much wider and just be a lot more different. I think there'd probably be more stuff like jump pads and all over the place that make it more interesting. And that's all I can think of for now. As for extra modes, I'm hoping Nintendo will add something like this in the future, but I think ARMS has a lot of potential to be an amazing game, but it needs more stuff quickly before the fanbase dies even further. Ever since Splatoon 2 came out, no one has really been playing ARMS. Maybe a couple of people have been playing the online, but like, it's just nowhere near as popular as Splatoon. And yes, to its credit, it is an original IP and all, and like Splatoon 2 is the sequel, but still, I think Nintendo has the potential to make ARMS amazing and maybe help it like stand out from the shadow of Punch-Out, which was another Nintendo series that was really beloved back in the day, and we haven't seen another Punch-Out game since the one on the Wii. I mean, I know Nintendo hasn't forgotten Punch-Out because they included it in the NES Mini. I think they're going to include it on the SNES Mini as well, so I think it would have been more interesting if this had been a side mode in Punch-Out, and maybe just leave it at that, because I think basing an entire game around these stretchable arm mechanics just doesn't really work that well unless you add more modes and you add like a competitive mode for online. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked my ideas, and if you have any ideas below, I might even make a sequel video for this in the future. I think I'm going to probably wait a couple months and see if Nintendo adds more stuff or if they don't, and then I'll make an extra video. So as always guys, it's really appreciated if you subscribe to this channel if you really enjoyed this content. I really do highly suggest you check out my other stuff before doing so, of course. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, but only do that if you want to.